Why don't skeletons ever show up at Halloween parties? Well, they have nobody to go with. What's going on, YouTube? It is Friday. We're inside the Cold Harbor City, inside of the Hollow City. Go over our first of two golden vendors. Now, Zenil, as you know, has been having a lot of spooky items recently, and that continues. Now, the Azure Plasm Cage, I'm just going to throw this out there because some of you may not know what to do with this. You can actually fuse it into your walls if you want to create a gigantic blue light. It is a very popular item. It's 100K, but you're only going to make a 21K profit on average if you were to resell it. So probably not the greatest. But these things, 300 gold for an entire coffin that you could put a body in. You could put freaking a companion inside of it. You could throw Bastion in here if you've got him unlocked as a housing person. That is fantastic value. I cannot suggest this more. If you plan to make any sort of Halloween themed items for housing contests, for anything, this is essential. 300 gold. The lid's probably not super essential, but oof, I will say 300. I'll probably just snap up 10 of these before I forget. So then we go on to some other items. We have a Cold Harbor column. This is a really nice column because again, it's got skulls in it. It's one item. 15K, you can see it almost doubles in value on average. This one's a little bit less. I think it's just doing a little bit too much. I think just the spherical design of this is a little more desirable than this one. We have a beautiful, ironically, just a little carpet, and it has a lot of value based. It's like 3 times the value of what it is, which is kind of interesting. I don't necessarily know what you do with these. You could always use them almost as posters, put them on the ceiling, etc. We have a Necrom coffin, which is not, the juice is not worth the squeeze here. 15K average for 17K. We have a brazier. This is not producing enough blue light to be worth it, and it looks kind of ugly. We have this Necromancer spire. This one's okay. You know, kind of gives off like the Undercroft French vibes, but it's got a little bit of value. It gives about 50% value. This one, though, does not. I don't know what we're doing with this one. This one is just a bigger version of this, but worse in every way. So I don't know what we're doing with that. And then we have skulls. I mean, yeah, this is a cute little skull things. I just think that candles don't really do well if you need a couple of these, but it feels a little bit pricey for just 3 skulls with candles on top. But it is only one housing item. So in short, the spooky items this week, the essentials, are definitely going to be this coffin. This is great if you need something to produce blue light inside your house. And then the Cold Harbor columns with skulls in it is definitely fantabulous. All right, everyone, I just learned that the golden vendor has 2 times the additional items due to the test that went on. So we're going to go through these a little bit faster than normal, but the ratings will always be the same, the 1 through 10 scale. Please like and subscribe for the video. Let's jump into our traditional golden vendor because there is just a ton of items, and some of these are fantastic. Set number 1 we're going to discuss is Azure Blight. Now, important disclaimer here because this vendor is doubled. Everything you see for a necklace, you can also get as a ring in the vendor. Now, not going to make a lot of difference. Just depends on what you need if you were to buy these. But it's important to note because some sets require you to have 1 ring or 1 necklace versus 2 rings. And usually rings are a little bit better because of that. But we'll talk about it if it comes up. But set number 1 comes from Lara Marsalak, Azure Blight. Dealing damage with a damage over time. That puts a stack of Blight seed at the target for 5 seconds. At 20 stacks, they explode, and then it deals additional damage to the target and nearby enemies, increasing by 150% for additional monster hit. Up to 600%, it scales off your weapon or spell damage. And importantly, enemies can only have 1 seed of Blight active at a time. It requires 20 or more stacks per group member wearing this set. So this is a set that you really only wear as an individual, similar to Zen's, where you only get the value kind of 1 time. Not that you can't have multiple running this set, but you're not going to get as much value out of it by doing so. But it's a fantastic PvE set, arguably a best in slot. I think that a lot of people will run sets like this. It's hard to say if it is a 10 out of 10. I'll give it a 9.5. It's about halfway between fantastic and being a 10 out of 10 set. I do think that there are better, end game trial sets for PvE that are going to be better than this. But if you were like, Jake, I'm going to run Azure Blight in my dungeon group. Yeah, that's a 10 out of 10 set for that. As you get into hard trial content, as you get some of those perfected sets, kind of tapers off a little bit. So we're not going to give it a full 10. We'll give it a 9.5. Next up is the Overland set from Solstice. It gives you health, stam. When you have a food buff active, your block mitigation is increased by 8% and block cost is reduced by 8%. you can see the value of this is only 1,309 gold, which is not good. That's not to say that that determines if a set's good or not, but it definitely shows how much of a market there is for reselling it. And the fact that this is an overland set where jewelry is not super easy to get in Solstice does not bode well for a set like this. But, and the reason for that is it's not necessarily because the set's bad. The problem is that there is a block mitigation cap. And if you go over that cap, you have a set doing nothing. So a set like this is cool. You potentially could save yourself some champion point, lines by not having to get, different champion points like bracing anchor. But why would you not just get a lot of the defensive stance, bracing anchor, immovable, bound aegis if you wanted? That's the problem with a set like this. So to me, a set like this is still good, but it's just not going to ever really get into any sort of meta. So because of that, I'll give it a 7. If you told me you made a really cool full belly set, I believe you. I'd say it could be you could make a good set with it, but it's not going to naturally be a good set. Next up is Gloom Grace. Now this bad boy is interesting because it's from Somerset. You can see it's got a little bit of value to it from the overland, better than the other one at least. Gives you health, healing taken, health. When you take damage, you become a living shadow for 10 seconds, causing you to heal for 1664 every 2 seconds. And you also gain major evasion, which reduces the damage taken from area of attacks by 20%. This effect can occur once every 20 seconds and scales off your maximum health. So a set like this has some problems because major evasion and just evasion in general is certainly helpful, but it's only really going to be helpful in PvP. And that's the problem, is if you're a PvE player, you shouldn't be taking damage from area of effect things. Don't stand in something if it's red. Just move out of the way. Now in PvP, sometimes that's inevitable. Sometimes we have to stand in those things because there's nowhere to go. But the problem is that a set like this is healing you, which healing gets nerfed by Battle Spirit, and evasion is not really that difficult of a buff to get in 2025. And yes, giving you health and healing taken is fine. I just think this set's doing too many different things. Yes, it's a cool set. Yes, it's flavorful. I'll give it a 6 though. I just can't rate it any higher. Next up is a set that I think deserves more love. It comes as an over set from Galen and Euphelion. So this one gives you crit chance, weapon and spell, and when you have a food buff active, your critical damage and critical healing is increased by 13%. That is big boy damage. Now, the problems with this set is oftentimes that it's seen as just a light armor only set, and that is true. The thing is that you can always wear jewelry pieces and then a weapon with this bad boy, and you can still wear medium armor pieces. I truthfully think that with things like the monomyth, there should be more experimentation with this, because then you could run a 2-piece, jewelry. You could run the 2 pieces of this on your weapon, and then you could have just one random light piece, like a freaking piece of shoes, because you're going to do 5, 1, and 1 anyway. Then you could run anything else that you wanted on that set. In fact, you could even front bar this set and have a back barred arena weapon like Vate Strand Ice or something. And then on your 5-piece body, you could have another crit damage set. Like, you could probably even run this Order's Wrath if you really wanted to, and you could just get crazy amounts of crit damage on people. Stack the monomyth, stack back belly, we're on Order's Wrath. I just think that with the ability to do crit damage, there should be more experimentation. I understand there's a lot of really good buff drinks, but I feel like this set is so slept on that it boggles my mind. It has made me think that I should make a build with this set, because I'm like, maybe if I talk about it, that people will talk about it. I'm going to give it a 9. It's so slept on, but it's crit damage. Crit damage is good for PvE. It's good for PvP. I just think that this set needs more love. It needs more experimentation. I think a lot of people have just seen Order's Wrath as the superior thing, and I understand that there are crit damage caps and blah de blah, but if you're at the crit damage cap, you're in a good spot. Next up from Black Drake Villa is Kinross. Now it gives you weapon and spell crit, weapon and spell, dealing damage with a light or heavy attack grants you stack of burning heat for 5 seconds. At 5 stacks, while you have 5 stacks, you generate an aura granting you major berserk, increasing damage done by 10%. While you have an aura of wrath, group members within 10 meters of you gain minor berserk, increasing your damage done by 5%. So this could be, it's a good set. The issue is that the problem with a set like this is just getting outperformed. In fact, it's getting outperformed by other sets that are literally in this video. In my opinion, the Azure Blight is better. Now, Kinross is nice because you're getting yourself a major berserk. It's not something that's necessarily affected. If you put Blight Seed from Azure Blight on other things, if your group members are there, you're kind of overlapping each other, but you would be overlapping giving minor berserk, which is really not an uncommon buff to already have as is. Major berserk is definitely pretty okay. I just think that even Pillar of Nirn is now outpacing this set. This set to me is an 8. It used to be that 9, 10. It used to be cool, hip. All the kids loved it. But to me, it has just fallen off a little bit because of how many new sets there are that are just so good. I mean, Order's Wrath, Gorman is arguably better than this. I mean, would you rather have 13% in critical damage increase, or would you rather have Major Berserk? You know, that's where it just becomes difficult. And I think, honestly, Gourmand is just going to take the cake in these days. Next up from Frostvault is Zogdvins. Now, I probably am mispronouncing that. Please don't kill me. This is another dungeon set, obviously. This one gives you crit chance, penetration. When you deal critical damage, you gain a stack of precision, increasing your crit chance by 177 for 5 seconds. At up to 10 stacks, at max stacks, you also gain Major Force. Now, I love this set. The problem is that Minor Force is pretty common these days, unfortunately, realistically. Or else I would say slap this with Gourmand and you're good to go. The issue is that you don't need Minor Force. You can get Minor Force from so many skills these days that you really don't need to run a set like this. The critical chance increase is nice, and you certainly could run it in a build where you're like, well, I don't need Minor Force because I'm just going to get it from my set. Therefore, I'm going to build my skills around a little bit different. I just think that you probably aren't going to run a set like this. It comes from Frostbolt. It's annoying to get. It's still a good set. I'm still going to give it an 8. It's still a fantastic set when it comes to this specific niche. The problem is that if you just look at it compared to every set, it's not fantastic. It's only fantastic in that weird niche of maybe a solo crit damage build where you're not giving yourself Minor Force. Then it becomes fantastic. But overall, it's still an 8 out of 10 set. I could definitely recommend it if you're trying to build like maybe like a solo, you know, a crit damage build. Next up is a set from the Rift, which you may not want to go into because the zone there is a bit cattywampus. Ysgramors? I don't know how to say it. It's probably named after some frost giant somewhere. It gives you crit chance, max magicka, weapon and spell, and then 400 weapon and spell damage to your frost damage abilities. Here's the problem, ZeniMax, is that you have sets like War Maiden, which give you 600 and have a similar restriction, but significantly more broad in everything else it affects. So riddle me this, what's going to be affected by War Maiden that's not going to be affected by this? And that's where if you bump this to like 700, you might see a little bit use from this. But Frostbite's a better set, War Maiden's a better set. Yes, in today's age, it's really fun to build frost damage bullways, you know, Mr. Freeze, whatever. But it's got to be a 6. I mean, it's like, yeah, 400 weapon and spell damage is good, but like, it's so narrow in what you're building. And if you are building that, just use War Maiden. Why would you run this? Next up is Zens. Now, Zens is a 10 out of 10 set. Don't even need to discuss it. Also comes from Lara Marsalok. You may have heard of the term Zens DK. Zens DKs became synonymous with being that guy wearing this set. And it's a really good set. Talk about it briefly. It gives you Magicka recovery, weapon and spell, max Magicka. Your light attacks apply Touch of Zen on your enemies for 20 seconds. Enemies with a Touch of Zen take an additional 1% more damage for each damage over time effect you placed on them, up to 5%. But enemies can only be affected by 1 Touch of Zen at a time, meaning that it will not stack. If your whole group is wearing Zens, it's only going to have the 1 effect of it. So, unfortunately, there only needs to be 1 body wearing this set, but it is arguably mandatory for trials. You're going to hear somebody wearing this set because it is a flat 5% damage increase. You're not really going to beat that. And that person can still stack all the other buffs in the world that they're going to get. The only issue is there's only going to be 1 poor soul wearing it. And honestly, you know, it's hard to argue that a set like this is just really good. I think ZOS should make more sets like these because I think it makes everybody wear different sets. And I think it's really cool to have 1 person wearing, you know, a set like Zen's. I think that's just really cool for group composition. I think, and there's obviously other sets like that too. I think they should focus more on sets like that. 10 out of 10, best in slot. You'll see this often. Next up from the Cauldron is a monster set that has a style page attached to it that's worth bajillions, or at least it used to be. This used to be the fit that made the ladies go crazy. But as a one-piece, just fun fact, this is a very good set because it's one of the only one-piece monster set to give you Try. I think Stonekeeper is one of the only other ones to do that. So it gives you Stand Magicka health. So if you're making a max stat build, this is a fantastic one piece to, you know, slap with your trainee piece or whatever. And then as a 2-piece, applying a status effect to an enemy grants you a stack of Zodras Ambition for 10 seconds. Up to 3 stacks max. When you gain 3 stacks, the stacks are removed and you gain 4 ultimate. On gaining ultimate, you can't get an additional stack for 1 second. So you basically just want to do tons of status effect. Now you might think to yourself, oh, Jake, status effect, that's got to be annoying. No, just use elemental susceptibility. And then bam, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. You're getting tons of ultimate. It's more PvP-esque. Gaining ultimate is just generally always good because it's called ultimate for a reason. Because it's ultimate. Yeah, this is you're so brooding, and I don't want to preview it anymore. It just feels so brooding to wear this. I mean, look at this. My guy just looks like he's like, yeah, man. I like to go to emo concerts and shop at Hot Topic. People used to say this was sold so well because it made you look like the mouth of Sauron. I think if you built a mouth that also like went with that, that would be true. But as a base, like if you're not basing it around that, like you just kind of look brooding. So. It's a weird set because it's niche, but I do think it has a place. I'm going to give it an 8. Being able to get that much ulti generation, even after some nerfs and changes to ultimate generation, is still good. I think elemental susceptibility was also nerfed a little bit with the timers on it. This is still a fantastic set in that niche meta, but I'm going to give it an 8 for its broad utilization. I think it is absolutely great. Next up is the Gatekeeper set. And this comes from Graven Deep. It gives you 1-piece stam recovery, 2-piece when you roll dodge, you create a husk after you roll. While within 5 meters of the husk, it will absorb all direct damage attacks against you after 1 second. It then explodes for 566, 8 poison damage to all enemies within 5 meters. But this effect can only occur once every 20 seconds. And it scales off your weapon and spell damage. And it looks unique, to say the least. I mean, would you rather wear this or this on your head? Just out of curiosity, put it in the comments below. But a set like this is just too annoying. So you, like earlier, we were casting elemental susceptibility and we're gaining our ultimate. Here, to get the value, we are roll dodging, and I just think that that's not a good way to proc your PvP sets. Realistically, that's what you're going to use this for. Do you find yourself roll dodging very often in PvE, needing a husk to defend you? Not really. So not seeing any sort of PvE utilization. So for me, this set's like a 6.5. I mean, I'm sure that you could stack this with all sorts of goofy nonsense and make some sort of unique, slightly higher than mediocre build, but we're not much higher than that. Next up from Imperial City Prison is Lord Warden. Now it's a 1 piece of armor. Very few 1 pieces give that. So Lord Warden is fantastic for its 1 piece. If you need just a piece to slap on with trainee or whatever, Lord Warden, fantastic. When you have it take damage, though, you have 50% chance to summon a shadow orb for 10 seconds that increases the physical and spell resistance of you and your group members within 8 meters by 30, 60, 90. So that's actually really good. Or 30, 69. I don't know. Ignore how I say numbers. That's pretty good. The problem is that very rarely do you need to do that. Like for PvE, for example, you don't really need to give a buff to other people if you're the tank. You just yourself don't want to die, with an exception. If you're doing no death, speed runs, and you want to make sure that, your group members aren't dying to goofy things, a set like this could be pretty good to run on a tank because it's giving, decent buff to other players. The only issue is you're generally wanting to give them like an overshield, not necessarily like a damage reduction, but potato as it is. You might see this utilized in like ball groups for PvP. You probably will see that, but I'll give it an 8. But I don't think the majority of players will like to use it or need to run it, even though it is a great set. Next up is from Stone Garden is Stone Husk. You get crit chance. Your heavy attacks tether you to an enemy for 5 seconds. As long as you remain within 10 meters of them, enemies touching the tether will take 984 physical damage every 1 second, and you gain a stack of Husk Drain, up to 15 stacks. This effect can occur once every 15 seconds. It scales off your weapon or spell damage. When the tether ends, you consume those stacks and you gain 28 weapon and spell damage for 5 seconds. So there's just so much weirdness. We're also going to do a quick math calculation here because we're just doing a lot of weird stuff. And you're getting about 420 weapon and spell damage. And I'm doing all this weird tethering, remaining within a meter people. I'm wearing this mask that looks really goofy. Like I just don't see the value in it, because if you're going to use a monster set that you need value, just run a different one. So it's cool. It might have a place in like heavy attack builds, or probably a werewolf build because they love weird shit like this because they can keep enemies easily around them. But like, 420 weapon spell damage. I mean, on a monster set is pretty good, but you're also doing all this stuff. I'll still give it an 8 just because I see some value, but I just think you really are using a complex set to get the value that you need. And then we have the rings of everything we discussed below. Now, the rings I don't think necessarily have any more value than the necklaces for this week. Most of these are not really you're probably gonna run like a mythic like Gourmand, for example. I'm running the monomyth, so I only need 1 ring and 1 necklace anyway. Now, in some PvE builds, you probably are not gonna run it as, or you probably will run full rings because you're not gonna use a mythic, but you could use Oaken Soul. Could always run, that bad boy as, people do. So none of these jump out at me as necessarily needing additional rings or having extra value. But obviously, if you want to run a set like Zen's, it's fantastic. You can get 2 rings, 1 necklace. You'd be hunky dory. Shoulders are just great because if you're like, Jake, you spoke to me, I want to make an elemental susceptibility set that runs Bait Strand Ice. That's an ultimate generation build. I'm sold on it. You could get both pieces. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Other sets and builds, if you're like Lord Warden, if you're like, Jake, my group keeps dying, probably other sets that are better that you could go for. Jake, if I want to run the most complex monster set in existence, you could go for it. But mostly as a TLDR, Azure Blight is going to be a fantastic option for you. Gourmand, I probably am going to make a Gourmand build just to see if I'm absolutely off kilter with this, but I just see value in it. I think a Nightblade that just maxed out crit damage could do so well with it. Kinraz has seen the meta and it has left the meta, unfortunately, but it is still good enough to where it's justified to run. Zogdvins is still, I think, in my opinion, great, but it's going to be more of like a solo crit damage build, which you're probably not going to want to run in PvE really, unfortunately, either, because you have to build stacks and I don't know, like, I guess you could do that, but it's just, I don't feel like building stacks in the way that this does is going to be as good for PvP. And then Zen's is just the set, there's going to be a guy wearing it. You could be the guy if you want. You could be that guy. But everyone, thank you guys so much again for watching. This has been one of the best golden vendors we've ever had because we have actual good furnishing items that are worth really good value. I mean, the coffins from earlier, fantastic. The sets that we talked about, also fantastic. Let me know if you like the timestamps below. As always, we're doing our quick 3 giveaway drawings. All you have to do to enter is like the video / leave a comment, comments below. Second thing is just make sure you're subscribed. We'll pull a random subscriber. And the third thing is look for a hidden word be flashed upon the screen or put somewhere else on the video, title, description, end card. Keep an eye out for it. Thank you guys so much again, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye, guys.
You better remember to like and subscribe to Jakeclips. Or you should. I might have to pluck your eyes if you don't. Or, better yet, I'll skip rope with your entrails. Do it now. Subscribe. Ta-ta. Off with you.